Hi, everybody. For everybody just joining Jennifer Rose videos, I want to welcome you. For all of those people that keep coming back to watch my videos, I don't know 2 years ago if I could have watched these videos. I don't know if I was ready for the knowledge that I'm giving you. So whoever keeps watching these videos, good for you to have the curiosity enough to be a student, to sit and just take somebody's knowledge and do, what you want with it. I had, so each week that we go through, let's just give a recap. There's 7 levels to being human. So the first week we went over to be human. Second week we are a healer. Third week, last week, we talked about being a teacher. And this week it's all about being a student. And why is a student above a teacher? Because if you're not willing to learn, you can't really go any farther. Even a teacher that is teaching on the most profound subject still can have a student question them and learn something in their own lesson. I know I did last week. When I send things out, I too am learning because I have to sit in a seat of reflection on my own development, my transformation, my awakening, whatever you want to call it. And being a student this week, sitting in the place of a student, listening more. My husband was my most profound teacher because I realized in moments that people are telling you something, but you need to say something. You need to be right. You need them to hear you, but we're not necessarily listening to the knowledge that they're giving us. And even somebody that's sleeping next to you has something to give you, because you can live in the same house but not have the same experience in life. You might have different jobs, different careers, different way you look at things, different childhood, whatever it is. So we all have to be open to learning. In any single given moment, somebody could give us knowledge. And because we are so arrogant, we don't listen to it and we don't grow and we don't evolve. So that is why a student is above a teacher and the levels of being human. So yesterday I put out a story about a poor man, and I wanted to elaborate on that story because each week I teach intuitively. I teach from the heart, and I haven't told a story yet on how to get across the lesson of being a student. And I think this story really does play into how we all, myself included, need to be more of a student in everyday life. So the story goes that a poor man was walking down the street and he was approached by somebody. And this somebody had 2 bags in their hand. Now, there was no conversation. It was just, I have something to give and I want to give it to you. And he says, I have a bag of gold for you, or I have a bag of nothing. And he's not going to describe each. This person isn't, swaying him to take one or the other. And the poor man says, well, I'll take the pot of gold. So he does. He gets it free and clear, goes home. But here's the part of the story. He wasn't a poor man. He just felt poor. He went home to his house in his car with his fridge full of food with his beautiful wife and 4 children waiting for him. And he walked in the door and he said, I got this pot of gold. It's ours. The bank cleared it. We have $2 million. And his family was so happy, and they're going to have all this money, and all the kids are thinking all the things that they want. And the wife is like, I can go places and do things. And he realized that, he's had some money background. He can't just spend the 2 million on things. He has to invest. So he invested in this business, and it ended up taking off. And a decade later, he is rich. I mean, he has faucets that are made of gold. He has 10 cars in his driveway. He has $1,000 suits on. He made it. In our terms, in our world, he would be considered rich beyond anyone's means. But was he? What happened to the family? Well, his wife divorced him. He spent 100 to 200 hours a week working to build this business. And his marriage was sacrificed. He did have affairs. And she ended up leaving. She got a nice settlement from him. There was no real animosity or anything. They just kind of faded away from each other. And it was a mutual divorce. No hatred on either side. And she ended up meeting a wonderful man and got married and living the lifestyle in the suburban neighborhood. So she's happy. And his 4 kids are all over the world doing their own thing. He rarely has a relationship with any of them because he's working so much that they don't really know him. He doesn't really know them. Some he talks to, some he doesn't talk to. But he's happy. Like, he has everything he's ever wanted. He's can go anywhere he wants. But one day he was on vacation and he was going down the street, and this person that he met a decade earlier approached him again, and he was so happy. He was like, oh my gosh. And he told him about all the success he's had, and that house, that big house on the hill overlooking the ocean, that's my house. And just so excited to tell him what that pot of gold gave him. And the person smiled and says, I have 2 bags for you, bag full of gold and the bag full of nothing. And the guy looks at him and he goes, I get offered this again? But he already had all the money in the world. He didn't need the gold. So he was curious about the bag of nothing. And he said, well, since I don't need the gold, I'm going to take the bag of nothing. So as soon as he put his hands on that, the person in front of him disappeared right in front of his eyes. And when he opened his hand, it was a globe. And he could see everything that he already had. He had a wife that absolutely loved him. He had 4 beautiful children that adored him. He had a great house. He lived in a good neighborhood. He had a car that worked. He had food in the fridge. He had friends that he would go and do stuff with every week, but he lost contact because of his new lifestyle. And he didn't really have anybody that was close to now, anybody that he could trust. So that knowledge showed him he was actually a rich man a decade earlier. He just couldn't see it. And I think a lot of us could relate to that. I know I could. We go through life and we think we know everything. We think that we're the smartest person in the room. But we don't spend a lot of time listening. We don't spend a lot of time learning, because when somebody is talking to us about the truth, we get almost angry, mad. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. But if we sit at the place of a student, if we start to listen, especially the elderly, I think they have a lot of wisdom to give because they've lived life. They've gone through all of these different stages. They're at the end of their life and they have wisdom to give. But in our own busyness, we don't have time. They talk too much. But you can imagine if they aren't able to talk to anybody and you finally have an audience, how nice that would be for them. And if we just sat at their feet and was just a student, how much we would learn. I tell you this story because we all need to be students in this life. When we are students, then we can learn from every human being on this earth. I look at all of us as like a corn cob. We're individual kernels. We are all unique. We are all different. We all have our own art, but we have something to give the whole cob. We have something to give to each other. But because we're like, oh, you think this way or you think that way, I say, what is your right more important than my right to have an opinion? We have to listen. We have to be a student. It does not mean that we have to agree, because that's not what this is about. What this is about is having a conversation. Can I learn something from someone else, from their situation, from their background? They're able to give something. And maybe you don't, but you still sat at the feet and was a student. And that you can always learn. You can always grow and you can always evolve. But I say, you could sit. I'll tell you another story. I was at the halfway house and I was so mad, just mad. Like, I did this thing, the spiritual experience that nobody understands, fighting things nobody can see, seeing things nobody can see again. And now I'm locked into this place. I only have a parking lot to walk around in. And there was this TV that was constantly on. I literally couldn't listen to a TV forever. And I was just so mad, just about the whole thing. And again, this is about being a student. This guy that was there too, he looked at me. Like, you know when someone's like looking at you to like, if I could impart this knowledge on you, I am talking to you and I hope you listen to me. And he looked at me and he says, it could be so much worse. And I looked at him. And instead of my normal response of, what do you mean? I looked at him and I said, yeah. Because when I was at the mental hospital, people were describing other halfway houses. And right now in our halfway house, it was very safe. The staff had full of love, did so many acts of kindness. I can't even like one day uh the staff member really wanted us to have a great day, so she it was the Kentucky Derby, so she brought the projects in and brought us dinner, so all of us got dinner outside of the place, and she brought hats that we could decorate like we were at the Derby, and it was the best day since I landed at the mental hospital till getting to the halfway house. And it was such an act of kindness and love. And so he was right. Like, it's the worst moment in my life, but it could be so much worse. I could be at another halfway house that is not very safe. It is not filled with any love, and the food is horrible. The food I ate at my halfway house was amazing. Like, everybody there was such a good cook. Like, I felt spoiled every time I got to eat because it was really that good of food. So I had really good food. I had a lot of love, a lot of concern, some of the best advice I've ever received in my life, encouragement. So in that moment, when the other guy, because if you look at his circumstance and his background, you would think, oh, what can he tell me? Like, really? But it's not true, because in that moment, he said the most wisest thing to me that I needed to hear. I was a student of his knowledge in that moment. And because I listened, the rest of my time at the halfway house was not as bad, because I was sitting in a place of gratitude. So this week, I don't have homework, I have a challenge. I think we need to sometimes sit at the place of a student in different ways. So on TikTok, I'm doing a phone challenge. And if you don't have TikTok, I would download it. If you want knowledge, sometimes the knowledge that you do get is by being challenged, by having these mini lessons on how to become a student. So if you're interested in that, go to my TikTok. I usually do a 3-day challenge. The first TikTok challenge I did was a dream challenge. The next one was forgiveness. Last week was gratitude. And this week is going to be the phone challenge. So if you ever want one of these mini lessons on TikTok, those challenges are really good. And I'm not saying that at a place of, oh, I know all. No, I literally, if you do these exercises, you will gain something if you do them. So from me to you, let's be all better students. Let's listen to each other. Every single person on this earth has knowledge to give. We just have to be able to sit at a place and listen, because you never know if that stranger that is trying to tell you something has that bag of knowledge that just might change your life and be able to see your life for the way that it is, the blessings you have. So I say goodbye, and I will see you next week at level 5, an angel. Bye.